And I don't mean to do that. It's just, I guess it's just what I do. All right. Okay, so I am starting the recording, and I want to start off first by saying you need to wedge the clay. Most of the time, the clay that you get on the wedging table in the bag is not going to be new out of the box. So that means you might end up with a lump of clay that looks kind of wonky. And if you can't see, please make sure you come around here. I'm going to hold up mostly everything, but it's important also for you, like tables 4, 5, and 6, for you to see how it's rolled out on the table. So this is way more than I need. You're going to need about 1 pound of clay. And let's see what I have here. I have 1.25 pounds. So I'm going to take a little bit off. This is less than 1 pound. So if I take 1 pound and I end up with a little extra, so what? I can always just put that back. So the first thing I want to do is take my clay and I'm going to push it down on the table and knead it. Wedging, it's called. Kneading, wedging. What I want to do is make sure that there's no openings in this clay, that there's no way that after I do all that coiling, that there's a space in between that coil that could eventually explode in the firing. So I don't want any air bubbles, any air pockets. And I'm just going to wedge it like somebody would wedge dough. I'm using my palms, like right here, and here's what my clay is starting to look like. Now, I'm doing coils. When it came to the pinch pots, you all had to make a ball of clay. I kind of related it to like making a hard snowball. For this, we don't want to do that. We're cylinder. Okay, so we want to think, when we have our clay, we want to force it to look tubular, cylinder. And already I can say, well, I'm not going to roll out the entire project in one piece of 1 pound clay. So I'm going to break it in half for now, because that's all I need. And I'm going to start bringing it so that it looks tubular. So I'm going to mold it with my hands, model it with my hands. So when I start molding it up for you guys, I'm starting with something like this. Doesn't look like anything yet, but now I need to have it on the table. Don't try to use a paper towel to save yourself maybe some cleanup. You have to do it right on the table. If you don't, the problem is going to be the paper towel is going to be going all over the place, and you're going to dry out your coil more than you need to. So I'm going to make sure I've got my water and my tools. The tools, it's almost as if you need one of everything. You're going to need a brown angle tool. It also acts as a knife. A metal rib tool also acts as a knife. Any kind of scratch tool. These could be the green tools. I am running low on these metal ones. And a ruler. The ruler is important. Like, don't forget that. And a paddle. And I also have a sponge sitting over here because when I'm making coils, the sponge is the nicest thing to add the water to it. Because as I roll this out, it's going to dry out. All right, so I'm bringing this to a tubular shape first. Then I'm going to put it down on the table. And can I ask, would you mind shutting the door for us? I'm sorry. I'm forgetting that part of it. All right, thanks. I'm going to do some editing today. So I put it down on the table. In making coils, here's what I'm going to see. Just like I saw when you guys were making the pinch pots, I'm going to see, all right, who needs to back off on their pressure, who needs to increase pressure. And with this, I also want to make sure I don't put too much pressure using my fingers instead of my palms, because if I do that, I'm going to end up with all sorts of lumps and indentations in my coil that you don't want. So you want a smooth coil. So you're going to use your palms, you're going to have the cylinder you started in front of you, and you're going to start rolling from the center outwards. So I'm taking my palms and rolling outwards, like so. Now I'll get my tools out of the way. So, yep, it's a mess on your table, but I actually have new sponges, so you guys could use those to clean your table. And I'm starting from the center and rolling outwards. And again, I'm going to purposely make mistakes here, but I have been making coils for a long time. So if anything seems easy when it comes to me, it's because I've just been doing it for a long time. I've always been an artsy kid. And so even when I was little, you know, my mom let us have Play-Doh, and I remember rolling out Play-Doh. If you've never had a chance to make coils in your life when you were younger or anything, this might be something so new for you. You're gonna have to have patience with yourself. You need to do that. Practice patience. All right, so I started rolling this out. I'm gonna stop here because I wanna have a 1/2 inch thick coil. Why? Because when I blend it, I need to have something of substance in order to blend. If I make the coil too skinny and I blend it, I'm gonna end up with a very weak vessel, and I don't want that. So I have my ruler here, and I can see it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit over a 1/2 inch, and I don't want to go too bulky because right now here's where I'm at with my coil. If it's too bulky, then that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to have a heavy piece. It's going to be heavy bottom, and I don't want that. So back to rolling it out. I roll from the center. Okay, so I said I was going to purposely make mistakes. Right now, I've got about 2 feet of coil. So let's say I've got my heavy-handed student. So this is what's going to happen. So I'll have a student that has got an uneven part here. Well, there's a couple ways you can handle it. I know I don't need all this for right now, so I could just break that part off and continue on with the rest of this. Well, what happens, you know, if it happens in the middle and I'm dealing with that? Well, again, break it off and then overlap it. Kind of like with your pinch pots, you did a rip and overlap. I'm just going to go ahead and overlap these two here. So put it back down on the table, add a little bit of water, and then combine the two and roll them into one. Because I'm blending them, I'm not worried about small imperfections, but if you go to coil this up, which I'm about to do, and it starts breaking, you know your clay did not have enough water in it. So please be sure to have warm water in front of you, share it with a friend, whatever you need to do, in order to just keep adding. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and measure again. Much better. It's thinner, but it's not too thin. That's 1/2 inch coil. So I'll hold it up for those guys in back. That's what I have. It looks like a rope now. Okay, so this is way more than I need, because the base on this small bowl is just 2.5 inches. So this is the beauty part of coils. That's why I love coils. There's so much control with coils because you just cut off or add what you need. So I'm spiraling this on the table, and I'm going to hold it up for you guys back there. I'm going to have my ruler handy, and I'm going to stop myself as soon as I reach 2.5 inches, and boom, there it is. So I'm just going to break this off. I'll show it in the camera. So I just cut this off, and I measure 2.5. If it's a little bit different than 2.5 inches, please don't stress about that. Okay, then you're going to take your scratch tool. Now I have something that kind of looks like a little Danish or something, rolled up tight. And I have to blend this out. I don't want to lose the circularness of this because that is the perfect circle for my base for the bowl. So I'm going to scratch it up, doing a crisscross action. This is very similar to what you had to do to get the 2 pinch pots together to make the egg. You're going to blend with the egg, 2 seams together. With this, you're blending the coils together. So here's what it looks like. After I scratched it up, I did a significant scratch, so it had some depth to it. So if you tend to be light-handed with this, don't be, because you really want that coil to be blended. What would happen if you don't blend it well? Well, as they dry, the coils are just going to want to completely separate from themselves. It's just a natural thing. Clay will have a memory of where it was and want to go back to that. So now here's what I've got. One side done, one side not done. Don't forget to do the other side. You have to blend both because the strength of the coil drying away from itself, each coil, is going to force this to crack open. And you want to avoid that at any cost. So I'm going to mess this side up and blend this back in. I'm dropping my metal rib tool in a little bit of water just because every time I'm handling this, I am pulling moisture away. So I end up with a disc that's circular. Here it goes. So you're not even going to know that that used to be a coil. And now I've got my remainder. So I've got to build up and out just a little bit, nothing crazy. I'm going to get another coil ready off to the side, just wet some clay. But first, I'm going to scratch all the rim, all the perimeter of this disc of my base, just like so. So make sure you've got that well scratched. And I'm going to scratch my coil too. And I'm going to take my muddy water I've had here since this morning, and I'm going to attach the coil. I will hold this up for you, and I'm going to cut it using, I like using the metal rib tool. It's sharp and it cuts it nice and even. And so I just put one on right now, and it's slipped and scored on there, not blended, obviously. I'm going to see if I can get one more. Nope, not quite. So I'm trying to think of other troubleshooting with coils. Students will often try to hurry with this project and make uneven coils unintentionally. It is worth it to practice, and it's worth it to have patience. The thing that I'm happy for you, although we do move along on projects, the good thing is you need to overlap them. You shouldn't have downtime because there's always this practice or that planning. If you're at a stage, let's say today, you're not getting to this coil project and you're glazing your vase, and I see some of you have your vases in front of you, that's absolutely fine. But what you will be doing is planning by writing words down in your sketch, your folders, ideas for symbols for yourself. If you're not sure, I will sit with you. The other day, B day, I took a student from the beginning questions I asked in the semester to figuring out exactly what they were going to do for symbols. And I could do the same for every one of you. In the beginning of the semester, I asked you about what you thought was beautiful. I asked you about your favorite color. They seem like things, gee, when you're meeting somebody, those are the things you ask. Well, yeah, it says something about you. So, what could a favorite color say? And I probably talked about this last class because we were talking about, you know, the symbols Native Americans use versus us. It could be that your favorite color says that, like this particular student had red for their favorite color. And I said, all right. I said, do you have a phone? Yep. Looked up what does red mean symbolically. Colors have meanings attached to them. And one of them was courage. So we went from that. I'm like, all right, so let's write that word down, courage. You know, maybe there is something to it. And then we looked up, he Googled symbols of courage. You could look in the animal world, or you could just look up that in itself. And it came up with a lion, and it came up with the Egyptian symbol for courage and eternal life, an Ankh. So it just evolved, it kept evolving from there. I asked you what you thought was beautiful. That's personal and subjective. One of the students in thinking sky, and I don't know if it was from this class, we went and started thinking about symbols that could be represented on a bowl that had to do with sky. Either way, when we talk about this at the end of the project, and I'm asking you about you, I should see those symbols explained, even just one-to-one. It's not like anybody has to know, but you should be able to talk about some facet of yourself, some facet of your personality, some facet of things that you value. Native Americans, that's what you saw on their artwork, is you saw their religious beliefs, what they valued domestically, and some of the things that they thought were decoratively beautiful. All subjective. All right, I'm back to my coil. I have another, I don't know, say 2-foot coil or so here, and I'm going to measure, make sure I'm at a 1/2 inch. Yep. Okay, so I've got this little opening here. That doesn't bother me. I'm going to slip and score this on the edge and just kind of fit in I'm going to size up that coil and just cut it with the metal rib tool. And scratch both. Add my muddy water to it. This one I'm doing slightly on the outer side. And that's how I'm going to get this look. Now, a couple of things you're going to find with coils. If they sit, they will dry out. So it helps. Like even just, I don't know if it's the heat, the dryness of this room is already drying my coils out that I've been demoing since this morning. So I've got a little patch here to do because where the seams meet, I'll hold this up. It's on the camera, but I just had to put a little piece here where the seam was, And now I'm into blending. All right, so I've got 2 coils. It looks like 3 because the base is here. Now I'm gonna stop and blend. The reason you don't stop and blend with just 1 coil is because the physical managing of just 1 coil is gonna make it either flop really in or really out. So I've got 2 and my scratch tool. And I'm gonna scratch these coils together, very similar to how you put the egg together and the neck on the vase together. I'm gonna kind of go up and down and then crisscross. Make sure the camera could see it so that if you need to see this again, you can. I'm also trying my skills at editing videos. I've actually had a student help me, just some things. I used to be more proficient at those kind of things. But when you stop doing it for a while and things change, it kind of goes to the wayside. So I'm scratching and blending. The reason I use the metal rib tools, I do have blue ones there. They do work too. I like the metal ones because the nice sharp edge, just like with your eggs, it straightens it out. So I'm messing it up and then blending it. And then I'm gonna do the same on the inside. Only when I do the inside blending, I've got a little bit more at stake than you all did with the Sgraffito pinch pots. I need more pressure. So for the inside, I am not using the metal rib tool because it's too big to get in there and the shape of it is gonna cut all the other edges. So I take my wooden angle tool, which also acts as a knife. I'm gonna take the blunt end and my hand on this curve, your hands, form the perfect curve so that I could push and blend and not get this misshapen. And I just turn and keep going. And in no time at all, it's blended. And I've actually created a tapered look to it. I'm gonna just bring this on camera. So I'm blending the inside with the wooden angle tool, making sure that nothing is kept open. Because if anything is showing, if I have a little line, if I have a little gap, that's all gonna eventually tear itself away. So blend and have your hand as support. Okay, and I'm gonna go around and blend all the outside. So any questions? No? You guys are a great audience. So it's a lot to take in, but I think intuitively, if you just keep practicing, you will understand. Keep the fingers out so your coils don't get indentations, and put enough pressure to actually extend the coil so that you're actually making the coil, but not so much pressure that you end up with a coil that's too skinny to work with. So once again, you're testing your abilities and you're pushing it. All right, so I've blended. I've got some inconsistencies over here, and that's from the blade on the metal rib tool. No problem. I'm gonna paddle. So I'm gonna paddle to neaten that up. And you guys know I talked to a lot of you about paddling on your first project, this Sgraffito. So when it comes to this now, you've paddled on your egg, you've paddled on your vase. The Sgraffito being the first one, a lot of you got better at paddling, and hopefully will continue. So I want this to have a bit of a taperedness to it, so it goes up and out, nothing crazy. So you can see on the side, up and out. All right, so now what? So I've got my base and 2 coils. I'm gonna do 1 more coil, and this coil is gonna go in. So I'm gonna take a section and just size it for right now. I'm not worried about sipping and scoring it. So I'm sizing it so that it's obviously shorter than my first 2 coils, and I'm gonna cut it. So this is me just sizing it. Can you all see that? Can you see that back there, Chloe? Javier, you got that? So it looks kind of like a cupcake right now, sized inside. So here's where the trickiness is. I've got to slip and score this on the inside rim of the last coil I did. So I'm gonna score this ring I have and score the inside of the last coil I did. And I'll hold that up too. So inside, add my slip. And now the trick in this is manipulation. you want to manipulate it so that it goes in and up. So that's one of the reasons too why we have 1/2 inch thick coil. We need enough of that, and they're gonna get larger with our big bowl. You need enough so that when you stretch it, yes, it thins out, but not so much that it makes the project weak. So I just attached it, and now I'm gonna blend. Hand on the inside, I'm gonna blend up and down, but always keeping my hand in such a way so that it won't come out. So I don't want it to fan out like this. We don't want it to look like a vase that comes out and over. So here's how I'm scratching it. I'm scratching it up and in. And I'm gonna do that obviously all around. And the good thing is you all won't be in a hurry for this project. You will take your time, you know, with the coil building. 1 pound of clay, you're gonna end up with extra maybe. You know, if you want it to be a little bit bigger and you have to end up adding a little bit more, that's fine. But I would say all of ours are gonna be a little bit different because I know Trace might do his coils a little bit thinner than mine, not much, but that'll end up, his bowl will be just a little bit bigger. Somebody, Javier, might do his coils just a little bit thicker, so his project might be a little bit smaller. You all see that with the vases. It's the same with handling. It's a signature. So I'm going to drop my, back to blending, my metal rib tool in a little bit of water. And when I blend all around now, I'm going to keep my hand angled on the inside so I don't jeopardize the form. So I keep the form going in and up. And it's going to even be more telltale when I paddle. And I have to be careful when I paddle. So here's what it looks like. So it needs obvious work. I can see this side's a little bit bigger. I'm going to paddle it so it's even. It's not going to be perfect because why? They're not machine made. We're not machines. And part of the charm is going to be that, yeah, it's hand built. And if I live to be 90, I will still be doing pottery. If I live to be 100. My grandfather actually lived to be almost 101. And he was like an incredible painter. Like he painted, I think, up until he was about 100. I hope I live that long. I'll be still doing pottery. I would be like Maria Martinez, maybe out in the desert somewhere, digging up my own pottery. So I blended the inside too. You have to blend the inside, all the while making sure that your hands keep this manipulated on an angle going up and in. Okay, Manny, you can see that too? Okay. So I want to make sure you guys understand this. When I paddle, I'm paddling on an angle, in and up. Deborah, you can see me over there okay? Okay. So this practice bowl is our in-class assignment meant to get you guys to know how to make clay so that you understand how to make clay, how to make coils. So you understand how to make coils, how to add coils one on top of the other, build them in a specific way, coming up and out and then up and in so that you end up with a bowl that has form, that is not just a pinch pot because this is coils. So I'm going to continue to paddle so that I've got all around even. I'm going to have to do some major editing. My skills be my whole prep time today. I'm going to smooth out the edges on the top so that the rim is even and paddle that. So I end up with a little bowl. So many uses. So coils, you want to make sure they're a 1/2 inch thick about. So you're going to have a ruler. Make sure you have some scratch tools, your blend tools, some warm water. The slip brushes are in a bucket called slip brushes. And any questions? All right, you guys have been a great audience. I appreciate this so much. All right, we'll get to work. Prioritize obviously what you need to get done. If you end up doing this next class, that's fine too.